The wallet fell silently, as if the night had swallowed the sound before it was born. A rectangle of dark leather sliding across the wet asphalt, right on the line where the yellow light of the lamppost ends and the real shadow begins. The kind of shadow that has a smell. Diesel, old frying oil, rain trapped in cracks. And it was there, on that boundary between what the city shows and what it hides, that David saw it. He didn't see a wallet. He saw food. He saw days without chasing after crumbs. He saw a roof over his head for a few nights. He saw a number that his stomach could calculate before his head could. David was 12 years old, but hunger ages faster than time. Hunger gives things different names. He picked it up with 2 fingers like someone holding something hot. Not out of disgust, out of fear. Fear of being seen. Fear of being accused. Fear of being beaten for existing. The city had a way of hitting first and asking questions later. David stuffed the wallet inside his shirt, pressing the cold leather against his skin. The sensation of the leather against his chest was strange, almost intimate, as if he were hiding a secret that wasn't his. And then he saw the man. It wasn't the man who first caught his attention. It was what the man carried without realizing it. A kind of calm haste, a silent arrogance, the confidence of someone who isn't afraid of the street corner. An expensive coat, fabric that doesn't wrinkle, shoes that don't see puddles, and the cell phone gleaming in his hand, showing numbers, graphs, a world that David didn't understand but recognized, the world of those in charge. The man stopped in the middle of the sidewalk, 2 steps from the entrance of a hotel that looked like a glass aquarium, too brightly lit, too clean. A security guard stood motionless at the door, looking down at the city. The man lightly patted his pockets, as if checking something out of habit. He patted them again, now faster. His forehead tightened. He looked around with a restrained shock, that polite panic of someone unaccustomed to losing anything. The wallet had disappeared. David stood still, leaning against the graffiti-covered wall of a closed shop. He could simply turn and run. He'd practiced that his whole life. Running is a language street children speak better than any other, but the man's gaze, it wasn't one of anger, it was one of vulnerability. Just a second, a microsecond in which the mask slipped, and what lay beneath was revealed. Fear. David swallowed hard. His throat scratched as if he had swallowed a handful of sand. He opened his wallet carefully, quickly, just enough to confirm what the weight had already indicated. There was money, lots of money. Bills folded perfectly, as if someone had folded them with a ruler. Black cards, discreet glints, an ID, a name. And that's when things got weird, because it wasn't just any name. David wasn't literate like the children at school, but he had seen television in shop windows, listened to radios from street vendors, and eavesdropped on adult conversations like someone picking up breadcrumbs. The name displayed there was one of those that people spoke with a kind of angry respect, as if it were impossible to pronounce without feeling a weight in their mouth. Augusto Lacerda, the millionaire, the guy from the mirrored building, the man who appeared in photos smiling alongside politicians, the guy who, they said, bought and sold companies like he changed his shirt, the name that became news when he opened his mouth and became rumor when he closed it. Davy felt something he couldn't name. It wasn't admiration, it was a memory, an echo, because Lacerda wasn't just a newspaper surname to him. It was the surname that came up once in a whispered conversation on a park bench, when a drunk man spoke of a construction project that evicted a lot of people from a plot of land. An eviction, a night of chaos, people screaming, his mother crying with her face hidden in her shirt. David didn't remember his mother's face clearly, but he remembered the sound, that sound of stifled crying, as if the world couldn't know she had been broken. Lacerda. The leather of the wallet became heavier. The man, Augusto, was already speaking to the security guard, quickly pointing towards the street. The security guard began to look around with a hunting gaze, scanning the sidewalk as if searching for an enemy. David felt his whole body urge him to flee, an ancestral animal instinct. Because he knew how it ended. Him holding something that isn't his, someone pointing, someone shouting, and then rough hands, a wall, a knee on his back, humiliation. Sometimes the police, sometimes worse, because at least the police have rules. The worst is when there are no rules at all, but the wallet was there, pressed against his chest, as if it were a borrowed heart. He took a step forward and stopped. He took another. His foot slipped a little in the puddle, and the small noise was too loud in his head. Augusto turned his face. His eyes met David's for an instant, just an instant, and in that instant, David felt the whole world measuring him. Dirty clothes, matted hair, dirt under his fingernails, the defensive look of someone who is beaten down by life. David slowly pulled his wallet out of his shirt. He held it up with both hands, like someone handing over a weapon. It's yours, he said, and his voice came out lower than he intended, raspy. The security guard took a hard step. Augusto raised his hand, stopping the guard without even looking at him, a commanding gesture that needed no words. Augusto approached, and then an incongruity occurred that David hadn't expected, and which, if someone had told him, he would have laughed in their face. The millionaire didn't snatch the wallet. He didn't suspect anything. He didn't make a scene. He looked at David. In truth. Not that sideways glance adults give street children, as if they were part of the dirt on the sidewalk. It was a lingering, curious, almost clinical look, as if he were evaluating a rare gem, as if David had done something that didn't belong in the place where he existed. "Why did you return it?" Augusto asked. The question hit David harder in the chest than any slap, because nobody asked him why. People ordered him around, they pushed him, they yelled at him, or they ignored him. David opened his mouth, but nothing came out. The obvious answer was, "Because I don't want trouble." But it wasn't just that. He already had the problem from the moment he was born. Trouble was the default condition. He looked at the hotel, at the light, at the glass, at the air conditioning that he felt outside like an icy breath from another planet. He looked at the man who could buy a month's worth of food with an hour's work. And he looked at his wallet, which could buy much more. "Because," and he began, and the word got stuck. Because his mother had taught him something before she disappeared, a short phrase, something like, "We can be poor, but we don't have to be bad." David wasn't sure if he remembered it correctly, but the feeling came back completely. "Because it's not mine," he finally managed to say, as if that solved the universe's problems. Augusto opened his wallet. He ran his fingers over the money. He checked his cards, not paranoid, methodically. The kind of method that those with millions carry in their blood. He looked at the document and then, for the first time, a corner of his mouth creased into a small smile. "Did you know who I am?" he asked. David hesitated. Lying seemed dangerous. Telling the truth was too. "I know," he said. "The people speak. People talk a lot," Augusto replied, almost amused. Then his face turned serious again, and that seriousness had an invisible edge. "And what do people say about me?" David felt his stomach churn. It was a trap question. He knew because he'd heard it on street corners at night, in small groups of people who had nothing to lose and therefore said whatever they wanted. They spoke of Augusto as someone who never lost, as someone who always won, as someone who made people disappear, not in the literal sense, but in the sense that matters. He took away places, he took away opportunities, he took away futures. David looked down. The ground seemed safer than the man's face. "Nothing," he lied, and the lie came out crooked on his tongue. Augusto let out a short hum, as if he already knew. He took 2 steps to the side, moving away from the crowd, and nodded. "Come here," he said. The security guard immediately became more tense. David did too. "Come here" could be the start of anything. David had heard "come here" before being beaten for doing nothing. But curiosity pulled stronger than fear. Or perhaps it was something else. A foolish, dangerous hope that arises when someone powerful looks at you as if you were human. David went. They stopped near a stone column of the hotel. The light rain had turned into a mist, and the car lights cut across the street like white knives. Augusto looked David up and down, and then spoke in a low tone, as if he were telling a secret. "Do you know what you just did?" he asked. David swallowed. "Send it back? You just said no to the easiest money of your life," Augusto said. "On the street, right now, without anyone seeing you. That's not common." David shrugged, trying to appear indifferent, but his body was trembling. Cold and adrenaline and shame. because he didn't know if he was being praised or analyzed like an animal. Augusto took out some banknotes and handed them to him. Here, a reward. David's heart leaped. The notes seemed to glow. They felt warm. And then came the second incongruity, more dangerous than the first. David retreated. Not because he didn't want to. He did. He wanted it badly. But because he had already learned that reward was sometimes the bait on the hook. No need, he said, too quickly. Augusto raised an eyebrow, now genuinely intrigued. You return it without anyone seeing. I offer it, and you refuse. Why? David took a deep breath. He felt the cold air enter and sting. Because then you say I asked for it, he blurted out, and regretted it immediately. What had he just accused? A millionaire. A man with security. A man who could buy the silence of everyone on that sidewalk. The security guard took a half step, but Augusto laughed. A low, short laugh. Not a mocking laugh. A laugh of surprise. You're clever, he said. And then he put the money back, as if that offer had only been a test. David felt a chill. Test. Augusto leaned his back against the column, looked at the street, then returned to David's eyes as if making a decision. I'm going to make you an offer, he said, and let me warn you, nobody expects this. The phrase hung in the air like a thunderclap that hasn't yet struck. David felt the world stop, because a proposal from rich people isn't an invitation, it's a trap or a miracle. And in David's life, miracle was a word people used when they wanted to sell hope. Augusto leaned in slightly, closing the distance, speaking even more softly, as if he were speaking directly into the viewer's ear, into the ear of destiny. His scent was expensive, a discreet perfume, leather, and something clean that David couldn't name. You're going to work for me, Augusto said. David blinked, confused. Work? Work, Augusto confirmed calmly. But not the way you're thinking. I don't want you carrying bags, cleaning floors, or begging for money. I want you to learn. David froze. The word learn seemed like a door he didn't even know existed. Augusto continued. I have an institute, a school, let's say. I can put you there. Clothes, food, a real place to sleep, to study. And if you can handle it, I'll take you into my world. David felt a wave of heat rise from his stomach to his face. A lump formed in his throat so big it felt like he was going to vomit or cry. He looked at the security guard, searching for sarcasm, looking for a joke. He found nothing. The security guard was too serious. David looked at Augustus again. Why? He asked almost voicelessly. Augusto held her gaze, and something there went dark for a second, like a flickering light bulb. Because I like rare people, he said. And because I have a debt to the city. And because maybe you'll be useful. Useful. The word cut through the spell like a knife. It wasn't charity. It was strategy. It was power. David felt his heart beat faster. Because suddenly, that proposal that seemed like a miracle began to smell of something else. Control. A kind of golden leash. Augusto stepped closer and stated the condition. Simple, precise, and dangerous. But you'll have to accept one rule. Just one. David stood motionless. Which one? Augusto smiled slightly, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. You will never lie to me, he said. Not even when the truth hurts you. Not even when the truth hurts me. If you lie once, it's over. You go back to the streets and I won't look back. The street, the word was a sentence. David felt an enormous silence growing between them. A silence filled with both future and threat. And then Augustus asked the question that would change everything. A question that David, if he were older, would have understood as a contract with the devil only written on tissue paper. Do you accept? Right now, before David even answers, subscribe to the $1 Million Stories channel, because this story isn't about a wallet. It's about the price of telling the truth when the truth is worth money, and about the kind of revenge that starts as an opportunity. David opened his mouth, and for a second he saw two lives. The life in which he said yes and entered a world that seemed like light, but could be fire, and the life in which he said no and returned to the familiar darkness, with a clear conscience and an empty stomach. He thought of his mother, of her muffled sobs, of the Lacerda surname echoing like a curse. And that's when the third incongruity appeared, the strangest of all. At the bottom of Augusto's wallet, David had seen a folded, crumpled piece of paper hidden behind the cards. It wasn't money. It wasn't a document. It was a clipping from an old newspaper with a bad photo. David hadn't read it, but he had seen enough. A young woman, tired eyes, and a large headline. Eviction. David felt his blood run cold, because that clipping, it seemed to have been kept not as evidence, but as a memento, as guilt, or as a trophy. And now Augusto was offering salvation to a child who may have been raised in the ruins of one of his decisions. David clenched his fist, gripping the fabric of his t-shirt, trying to hold his own body in place. He couldn't read properly. He couldn't do math properly. He knew nothing about the world of millions. But he knew when life was about to collect its due with interest. He took a deep breath, looked at Augusto, and said, "I accept." Augusto nodded, as if he had known from the beginning, as if the wallet had fallen on purpose, as if that night had been staged like a scene, and David, without realizing it, had just entered the first episode of a series that doesn't forgive good characters. The car was so quiet that David thought for a moment that he had entered an aquarium. The glass closed off the outside world, and the outside seemed like a bad movie. Flickering lights, people running with shopping bags, horns honking, motorcycles passing in the lane. Everything was there but distant, as if the city had been switched off with a remote control. David sat in the back seat, his body stiff, hands in his lap, trying not to get anything dirty. The leather was too soft. Soft like something not made for sleeping on a cold floor. He looked at the car's ceiling, at the tiny lights, at the perfect details, and thought, I don't belong here. The idea was so strong it felt like a smell. Up front, Augusto Lacerda spoke little, a man who didn't need to fill the silence. The bodyguard beside him kept his eyes on the street, as if still expecting some unseen attack. The first sentence Augusto uttered in the car was without looking back. "What is your full name?" David froze. His full name was something he hadn't used in a long time. On the street, a name is a password, it's protection. A full name is something that's required on documents. Davi Souza, he replied, and the second part came out weakly, as if he wasn't sure. Augusto turned his head slightly. "Don't you know?" David squeezed his fingers together. "My mother used to say it. I remember more or less." "And your father?" David gave a humorless smile. "Dad's a legend." The security guard exhaled through his nose, almost laughing. Augusto, however, did not. Augusto simply nodded, as if checking off an item on a list. "How many years?" "Doze." "Do you study?" David almost replied, "In the street," as a bitter joke, but he held back. "No. Do you know how to read?" "A little." Augusto was silent for a few seconds. Then he said, "You will learn." It wasn't a promise. It was a polite order. The car entered a neighborhood where the trees seemed taller and the sidewalks cleaner than they should be in a real city. David saw houses with high walls, cameras, gardens that looked like movie sets, the kind of place where people only get sick when they choose to. And then after a bend in the road, the building appeared. It wasn't your average school building. It was large, modern, with light-colored concrete and glass, but without any blatant ostentation. On the facade, discreet metallic lettering, Lacerda Institute. David felt a knot in his stomach. It was real. It wasn't just talk. The car stopped. A gate opened by itself. They entered an inner courtyard with a low fountain and benches. The place smelled of cleanliness and well-tended plants, the kind of smell that's almost infuriating because it seems to say, "Here, the world works." Augusto went down first. The security guard followed right behind. David hesitated for a second before opening the door, as if the air outside was different, and it was. A woman was waiting for them at the entrance. Her hair was tied back. She was simply dressed, and her posture was firm. She didn't look like a hotel employee. She seemed accustomed to dealing with problems without raising her voice. "Mr. Augusto," she greeted. "Helena, this is David," Augusto said. "He's going to stay." Helena looked at David attentively, but not with pity, with human understanding. That in itself was rare. "Hi, David," she said. "I'm Helena. Come with me? Let's take care of you first." Taking care of you. David almost laughed. Almost. Because the phrase seemed too beautiful to be true. Augusto reached into his coat pocket and took out a card. He handed it to Helena. Document his entry, and I want the full report in 2 weeks. Yes, Helena replied, without surprise, as if it were routine. David heard the word report, and he felt a chill. That was it then. He wasn't just a student. He was a case, an experiment. Let's see what happens if I take this boy off the street and throw him in an aquarium. Before leaving with Helena, Davi looked at Augusto, waiting for something. A line from a movie. Everything will be all right. A gesture of affection. Augustus simply said, "The rule still applies." David nodded. Augusto turned and left, like someone dropping off a package and checking the receipt. And David stood there, with the uncomfortable feeling of having just signed a contract without knowing how to read the fine print. Helena led Davi through wide corridors, filled with paintings, murals, photos of social projects, smiling children, graduations. Everything was very beautiful. Everything was very perfect. "Are you hungry?" Helena asked. David almost said no, out of pride, but his stomach answered first with an indecent rumble. Helena smiled, a short, understated smile. Great. Honesty. It's off to a good start. She led him to a cafeteria. It wasn't luxurious, but it was clean and organized. It had real food, rice, beans, chicken, salad, fruit. David picked up the tray with trembling hands. He sat in a corner, his back to the wall, driven by survival instinct. He ate quickly at first, too quickly until his throat complained. Helena sat to the side without intruding. "Slow down, David. No one's going to take this away from here." The phrase hit like a punch, because the streets taught the opposite. If you don't devour it, someone else will. If you blink, you lose it. He tried to chew more slowly. The taste of the beans seemed otherworldly. The food wasn't just food. It was proof that the world could be different, and that was frightening. After lunch, Helena took him to a small medical ward. A nurse checked his blood pressure, weight, and injuries. David was embarrassed when they asked him to take off his shirt and saw the old purple marks on his arms and ribs, like maps of a country at war. The nurse didn't comment. She just wrote it down. Helena only commented when necessary. "This is to help you, okay? It's not to judge you." David nodded but didn't fully believe, because the world always judges first. Next came the bath. A bathroom with light-colored tiles, a clean towel, soap that smelled of herbs. David stood in the doorway as if it were an altar. For him, bathing was always improvised. A park tap, cold water, embarrassment. Here it was hot water. When the water fell on his body, the dirt began to run off. But it wasn't just dirt. It felt like the whole street was going down the drain. The smell, the dust, the fear. David pressed his forehead against the wall and took a deep breath. Without realizing it, she started to cry. Silent, stubborn crying, like a leak. He tried to stop it. He couldn't, because some things, when they start to get better, hurt more than when they're bad. Getting better requires believing, and believing is risky. He came out of the shower in clean clothes, a t-shirt, pants, and simple sneakers. He looked in the mirror and almost didn't recognize himself. He looked smaller, more like a child. Helena was waiting for him outside. "Ready?" she asked. "Ready." She led him to a dormitory. Beds lined up, light-colored sheets. A few backpacks on the beds. There were other children and teenagers there, not many, talking quietly, some laughing, others too quiet. When David entered, the laughter subsided. Eye contact was exchanged. Quick assessments, curiosity, distrust. A tall boy, about 14 or 15, with neatly cut hair and a commanding demeanor, got out of bed and went over to him. "You're new," he said, as if it were an accusation. David became defensive. "I am." "Where did it come from?" David hesitated. "From the street." The boy raised an eyebrow, and his smile held a hint of venom. "Ah, so you're one of Mr. Augusto's miracles." Helena stepped in between them, not aggressively, but with authority. "And you're Caio, and you're going to treat him with respect," she said. Caio raised his hands, feigning innocence. "I'm being respectful, I'm just getting to know him." He extended his hand to David. David hesitated for half a second but then shook it. Kaio's hand was firm, strong. The hand of someone who trains, who competes. "Welcome to the aquarium," Kaio whispered, low enough for Helena not to hear. "There's food here. There are beds. But there are rules. And there's a ranking." David swallowed hard. "Ranking?" Kaio smiled. "You'll understand." On the first night, David hardly slept. The mattress was too soft, and that was a problem. On the street, the body learns to sleep like a stone, stiff, alert, ready to get up. There, his body sank. And when it sank, he felt fear of relaxing, and in relaxing being attacked, as if comfort were a trap. Around midnight, he heard footsteps in the hallway, light, controlled. The door opened just a crack, and a dim light streamed in. David sat up in bed with a start, his heart racing. A figure entered. It wasn't Helena. It wasn't the security guard. It was Kaio. Kaio carefully closed the door and walked to David's bed. "Don't shout," Kaio said. "It's not a threat." David didn't answer. His body was ready for a fight. Kaio sat on the edge of the bed next to him as if that were normal. "Did you actually return the wallet?" Kaio asked. David frowned. "How do you know?" Kaio shrugged. "Stories travel fast here." David felt a chill on the back of his neck. "So I'm news. I'm the event of the week." Kaio stared intently at him. "Listen, I'll be direct, because I don't like to waste time. The Institute isn't a charity. It's a showcase. Augusto chooses a few, tests them, molds them, and the best ones become advertising or tools." David felt the word tool to enter like a thorn. "And the worst ones?" David asked, almost without wanting to hear the answer. Kaio tilted his head as if telling a dirty secret. "The worst ones disappear." David froze. "How do they just disappear?" "They disappear from the Institute. They go back to nowhere. No photo, no goodbye, no explanation. As if they never existed. And if you complain, you become a problem. And problems disappear too." David felt his stomach churn. He wanted to say that Caius was making it up to scare him. But Caius's look was not a joke. "Why are you telling me this?" David asked. Kaio chuckled softly. "Because I like competition. And you came here with a story that makes Augusto look at you differently. That bothers me." David squeezed the sheet. "So you want me to leave?" Kaio moved a little closer. His voice became lower. "I want you to understand where you are, and for you to choose. Either you become part of the game or the game swallows you whole." David felt a rage growing, a hot, useful rage. It was better than fear. "What game?" he asked. Kaio pointed to his own chest. "The game of merit. Here, everyone has a sad story. But Augusto doesn't just want sad stories, he wants special ones. He wants those who deliver results, those who become success stories, those he can showcase on stage, those he can use to applaud himself." David remembered the newspaper clipping in his wallet. Eviction. Woman crying, a trophy. "And you?" David asked. "What are you?" Kaio gave a smile that wasn't a happy one. "I'm the favorite. Until you arrive." The silence grew heavy. Kaio stood up. "Good luck, David, and remember, Augusto's rule is not to lie to him. But nobody said anything about lying to others." He opened the door and went out, leaving David with a sudden urge to run. But run where, when for the first time in a long time he had a bed? The following morning, the Institute seemed like a different place. During the day, everything becomes more real, less dream, more routine. Helena took Davi to see the schedule: basic classes, reading reinforcement, sports, group therapy, workshops. It seemed like a plan to save someone. But in every room there were discreet cameras. In every corner an adult with a clipboard. And in every conversation, David realized one thing. Everything there was being measured. He entered a small room where a psychologist was waiting for him. She had a soft voice and attentive eyes. "David, this is Dr. Renata. We're going to talk for a bit. Is that okay?" David sat in the chair, his shoulders tense. He stared at the corner of the wall. A camera. He was sure of it. The psychologist noticed. "You're looking at the camera, right?" she said. David did not answer. She continued calmly. "It exists, and I'm not going to lie to you. Some sessions are recorded. Not to expose you, but to monitor your progress and ensure your safety. David let out a short, bitter laugh. Security? For whom? The psychologist wasn't offended. She just breathed. For you too, she said. But I understand your question. David crossed his arms. If I say anything bad about Augusto, will it go to him? The psychologist was silent for a second, that kind of silence that answers without speaking. David understood. Augusto's rule wasn't about truth. It was about control. Mandatory truth on one side, the power to interpret on the other. David felt an urge to test him. I saw a newspaper clipping in his wallet, he said, feigning casualness. It was about eviction. The psychologist kept a neutral expression, but her eyes shifted. By a millimeter. Enough. Did you see? We. And why did that catch your attention? David hesitated. The memory of his mother crying came like a wave. Because I think my mother, he began, and stopped. The psychologist tilted her head slightly. Do you think your mother was involved in an eviction related to Mr. Augusto? David felt his mouth go dry. The question was very specific, very quick, as if she already knew the answer and was just confirming it. He looked at the camera again. And then he felt, for the first time since he entered there, a cold clarity. He wasn't just being helped. He was being placed exactly where someone wanted him to be. The psychologist waited. David remembered the rule. Don't lie to Augusto. But nothing about lying to her, right? But if he lied there and it reached Augusto, he could disappear. David took a deep breath. I don't know, he said, choosing the truth that doesn't give everything away. I just remember crying and running. And that last name, the psychologist wrote it down. Okay. David left the room with his head spinning. In the hallway, Helena awaited him with a professional smile. All good, David replied automatically. Everything. Helena lightly touched his arm. You don't have to be strong all the time here. David almost replied, yes, I need to. But he remained silent. They walked to a larger room where a presentation was taking place. And there, on the makeshift stage, with a microphone in his hand, was Augusto Lacerda. He seemed taller than he was on the street. Not physically, socially. He spoke easily with well-structured sentences, like someone who had practiced it in front of a mirror and an audience. We believe in second chances, Augusto said, while some donors, well-dressed people with bright smiles, nodded, moved. And we believe that character is the true wealth. David felt his stomach churn. Character. The word he was using as a slogan was exactly the currency he had bought with a proposal. Augusto continued, Today I want to introduce you to a new student, a boy who, even though he had every reason to choose the wrong path, chose the right one. Helena turned to David, startled. David? David froze. He hadn't been warned. He hadn't been prepared. He hadn't chosen. Augusto looked directly at him from the stage and smiled as if they were accomplices. Come, David. The entire room turned into faces, rich eyes, curious eyes, eyes that love stories with a moral as long as they don't require changing anything in their own lives. David took a step, and another. His legs felt like rubber. He went up on stage. Augusto placed his hand on his shoulder, firm, heavy, a hand that seemed to say, You are mine. Tell them what you did last night, Augusto whispered, quietly but smiling at the audience. Davy faced the audience and saw something that made him realize the magnitude of the danger. There were professional cameras, not the discreet ones from the Institute, event cameras. Lenses pointed at him like weapons. The story of the wallet was not just a story, it was a campaign. Augusto squeezed his shoulder a little harder as a reminder. The rule, Augustus murmured. David felt his throat tighten, because now he understood the final trick. Augusto didn't just want David to be honest. He wanted David to be honest, in public, in whatever way he wanted. And then, right in the middle of the room, a man in a suit raised his hand and spoke loudly, in a voice that suggested he also liked to be in charge. And this boy, where did he come from again? From one of those informal settlements that hinder progress. David felt the ground disappear beneath him. The eviction returned like a blade. Augusto kept smiling, but his eyes hardened for a split second. David will answer, Augustus said, and his voice was too gentle, the kind of gentleness that is threatening. The room fell silent, waiting for the success story to speak. David looked at Augustus, then he looked at the cameras, and an idea, dangerous and brilliant, was born. If Augusto had bought his truth, then perhaps David could sell a different truth, a truth the millionaire wasn't expecting. David took a deep breath and spoke into the microphone. "I returned the wallet because I know what it's like to lose everything." The audience nodded, moved. Augusto relaxed a millimeter. David continued slowly, choosing each word as carefully as one treads on glass. "And I learned that some people lose everything because someone decided they couldn't stay." The salon didn't understand at first, but Augusto did. His smile didn't fade, yet, but his hand on David's shoulder tightened like a pair of pliers. David turned his face toward the audience, but spoke as if addressing Augustus directly. "I don't remember much about my mother, but I remember her crying during an eviction, and I remember her name, Lacerda." Silence. A silence so profound you could hear the air conditioning. Helena's face paled. The donors exchanged glances. The hungry cameras zoomed in. And Augustus, still smiling, inclined his head very close to David's ear and whispered in the calmest voice in the world, "Congratulations. You've just discovered what happens to those who try to embarrass me." He stepped back, faced the audience, and spoke loudly without losing control. "Children sometimes mix memories with traumas. That's why our work is so important." The audience let out nervous giggles, relieved to have an explanation ready. But David saw in Augustus's eyes, now yes, the silent promise, "You're going to pay for this." And it was at that exact moment when David stepped off the stage with trembling legs that Helena appeared beside him and whispered quickly, almost without moving her lips, "You did the right thing, but now you need to survive." David looked at her confused. Helena discreetly placed something in his hand, a folded piece of paper. "It doesn't open here," she said. "In the bathroom. Now." David crossed the hallway as if he were walking on water. He entered the bathroom, locked the door, and opened the toilet paper. It was an address, and a short, handwritten sentence. "Your mother didn't disappear. They were looking for her." David felt his heart stop for half a second, then go off like a siren. And when he looked up at the mirror, he saw something that didn't match the clean and well-dressed child. He saw someone with a target on their back. And outside in the hallway, heavy footsteps drew closer. The footsteps stopped right at the bathroom door. David stood motionless, clutching the paper as if it were a burning ember. The mirror reflected a face that was far too clean for the situation that was far too dirty. He folded the note with exaggerated care, the care of someone who has learned that information is food, and stuffed it inside his sock, because nobody searched socks, at least not on the street. The doorknob turned. A dry beat. "David!" The voice was masculine, confident. No shouting, no rush, worse than shouting. He took a deep breath and opened the door. The security guard stood there like a wall, broad, motionless, hand near the radio. He wasn't the same one from the car, but he was the same type. People trained to turn politeness into handcuffs without anyone noticing. "Helena asked me to take you to her," he said. David realized two things at the same time. Helena wouldn't send a bodyguard. She would come herself. If he were to go, he would go alone. "Okay," David replied, and the word came out quietly. The corridor seemed narrower than before, as if the Institute had decided to tighten the air supply. David walked beside the man, trying to appear obedient, while inwardly he was calculating, "If I run, where do I run to? If I scream, who will believe me?" They passed through a glass door, then another. The noise of the event faded into the distance, swallowed by silent corridors. There were no donors there, no photos, no second chances. This was the place where things happened without witnesses. The security guard stopped in front of a room with no sign. He knocked once, and it opened. He arrived. David entered, and he saw Augusto Lacerda sitting behind a table that was far too simple for a man who was far too rich. The simplicity was deliberate. It was part of the setting. Augusto slowly raised his eyes, like someone evaluating a piece of furniture before making a deal. Helena was in the room too, standing beside her, her hands clasped. Her eyes said one thing, her body another. She seemed obliged to be there. The security guard closed the door. Augusto smiled. "You like the stage, David?" David remained silent. In the street, talking too much is giving ammunition to the enemy. Augusto continued, in a voice so calm, it was infuriating. I gave you food, a bath, a bed, an education, protection. He paused. And in return, I asked for one thing, truth. David looked up. I told the truth. Augustus inclined his head, as if appreciating the audacity. You said own truth. He crossed his hands. But you chose the truth that creates problems for me. Helena took a tiny step as if to speak. Augusto didn't even look at her. She stopped. Augusto faced David again. Do you know what an institution like this is, David? It's a narrative. It's trust. It's investment. It's reputation. He pointed with his fingertips to the outside where the event was still taking place. Those people over there want happy endings. You wanted to deliver a documentary. David swallowed hard. Augusto smiled a little more. I admire courage. I just can't tolerate lack of control. He opened a drawer and placed a brown envelope on the table. He didn't throw it. He didn't hit it. He just put it down, like someone delivering a sentence. I know who you are. I know where you slept. I know who you hung out with, and I know something you don't know yet. David felt a tightening in his chest. Augusto pushed the envelope toward him. Abra. David didn't move. Augusto sighed, as if he were patiently caring for a child. Helena shifted, tense. Mr. Augusto. Helena. His voice was soft, but it cut him off. You stay. David slowly reached out and pulled out the envelope. Inside were copies, an old police report, a crumpled photo of a younger woman, tired but lively eyes, and a newspaper clipping with large print, reintegration of possession. Families removed in the early morning. In the photo, a scribble on the back. For David, when he grows up, the world has tilted. That's your mother, Augusto said, as if it were obvious. Her name is Marta Souza. David squeezed the photo too hard. Is she alive? Augusto let the silence settle before answering so David could sense that the answer belonged to someone else. It depends on what you call life. David felt his blood boil. Where is she? Augusto leaned back in his chair. You like rules, David? Me too, so let's do this. I'll make you a better deal than the first one. He raised a finger. You stay at the institute. You learn. You become the example. You give speeches, the ones I approve. Second finger. And I'll put you in touch with someone who knows her whereabouts. Helena's eyes widened. It was the first time she had seemed genuinely surprised. David understood. Augustus was using his mother as a leash. What if I don't accept? David asked, his voice low. Augusto smiled slightly. So you go back out on the street with a clear conscience and an empty stomach. He paused. And with that kind of information in your head, you don't last long. David looked at Helena. She looked away as if she were holding something inside to avoid exploding. But David realized she wasn't the type to look away out of cowardice. She looked away for calculated reasons. Augusto noticed this exchange of glances, and for the first time, his smile vanished. One important thing, David. In here you will learn two subjects, Portuguese and obedience. He patted the table lightly. You are intelligent. Don't waste that trying to become a martyr. David breathed in and felt the note in his sock. Your mother didn't disappear. They were looking for her. They searched. Who sought them out? Why? And Helena? Why would she risk that? David decided he wasn't going to respond with anger. He was going to respond with strategy, because that's what the streets taught him when force wasn't enough. Okay, he said. I accept. Augusto smiled again, satisfied, as if he had just tamed a wild animal. Great. He stood up. From today onwards, you'll have closer supervision, and you'll start private lessons. Helena will arrange them. Helena nodded, but her face was pale. Augusto walked past Davy, lightly touched his shoulder, the same gesture from the stage, now without an audience, and whispered, You're going to be my best project. And he left the room. The security guard opened the door and stood there, waiting. Helena made a slight gesture with her hand, asking the man to step outside. He hesitated but obeyed. The door remained ajar. Helena spoke softly, quickly, with the urgency of someone who knows that every second is being filmed. Listen carefully. I don't have much time. She glanced down the hallway. I wrote that note. don't trust anyone. Not even me 100%. This place has ears. David felt his throat tighten. Do you know where my mother is? Helena bit her lip, as if choosing the only possible truth. I know she tried to protect you. And I know her name appears in places where it shouldn't. Files that disappear, cases that close too soon. She breathed. And I know Augusto is afraid you'll remember. Fear? David repeated, incredulous. He has everything. Yes. Helena let out a joyless laugh. That's why he's afraid. Someone who has everything can't bear to lose control of a story. David pressed the photo of his mother against his chest. So what do I do? Helena approached and, without touching him, as if touching him were dangerous, said, You pretend, you learn, you observe. She discreetly pointed to his sock. And you keep evidence, not just memory, proof. And what if I have a test? Helena swallowed hard. When you have a test, you're going to need someone on the outside. David stared at her. Are you from outside? Helena hesitated just long enough to be honest. I'm trying to go back to being myself. The security guard cleared his throat impatiently in the hallway. Helena took a step back, the professional mask slipping back onto her face like a door closing. Now go, she said, loud enough to sound normal. I'll take you to the dorm. David left with her, and the hallway became a hallway again. But inside, everything had changed. Now he had a name, Marta. Now he had a photo. Now he had a terrifying certainty. The Institute wasn't a school. It was a machine for erasing and rewriting. That night in the dormitory, Caio was sitting on the bed, fiddling with his shoelaces as if it were a ritual. He looked at David entering and smiled. Were you summoned to the boss's confessional? Caio asked. David didn't answer. He slowly took off his shoe and felt the paper hidden in his sock. Helena's note. His heart pounded as if it wanted to escape his body. Caio watched. His voice grew softer. Let me guess. He offered you something you can't refuse. David stared at Caius. His arrogance seemed less now, or perhaps it was David who had grown. Did you know about my mother? David asked. Caio looked serious for a moment, a second of truth slipping away. I know everyone here has a rope. He pointed to his own chest. Mine is my father, yours is your mother. Augusto doesn't save people, he collects levers. David sat on the bed. And why are you still here? Caio shrugged, but his eyes grew tired. Because sometimes the cage is better than the abyss. He stared at David. And because I'm waiting for the chance to break the lock. The silence between them had changed form. It wasn't friendship, not yet. But it was no longer just rivalry. It was the uncomfortable realization that they were both trapped on the same chessboard, and that the chessboard had an owner. David looked at the ceiling just as he had looked in the car, only now the ceiling didn't look like an aquarium. It looked like a brightly lit cell. And he understood what he needed to do. He was going to learn to read for real. I was going to learn how to write. She was going to learn to speak the way they expected, just so that one day she could speak the way they feared. Because if Augusto had bought the truth from him, David was going to transform the truth itself into a weapon. Not a weapon to hurt people, a weapon to open doors, to tear down lies, to pull his mother back from the place where they had hidden her. He placed Marta's photo inside the pillow, as if it were a lucky charm. He closed his eyes, and for the first time since being taken off the street, David didn't try to sleep like a rock. He tried to sleep like a seed. 2 weeks later, the Institute published a flawless video, inspiring music, images of children studying, Augusto smiling, and Davi, in his uniform, saying short phrases about gratitude and choices. The video went viral. In the comments, thousands of people wrote that there is still hope and that this is what Brazil needs. Davi watched the video in a room with other children. The room's camera blinked discreetly. Caio chuckled to himself. Nice, isn't it? Now you're a brand. David didn't answer, because he had learned something new. Sometimes the best disguise is to appear exactly as they expect you to be. That same night, alone in the bathroom, David took the note out of his sock, already crumpled, almost lifeless, and copied the address onto a smaller piece of paper, easier to hide. Then, with a pen he borrowed from tutoring, he wrote a single sentence below the address, just for himself. I will remember. Outside, in the city that hadn't been shut down, Someone was closing the door of a small house and turning off the lights too early, as if afraid of being seen. And in a forgotten file somewhere, the name Marta Souza. She kept appearing and disappearing like a ghost, a sign that her story was still alive enough to bother powerful people. David folded the paper and hid it. In the darkness of the dormitory, the institute breathed like a large beast, quiet, organized, hungry, and David, small in the middle of the machine, chose not to be swallowed. He chose to learn about the monster's teeth from the inside. Because some truths aren't shouted from the stage. Some truths are kept hidden until they become the key.